Question 6 reads, 3 lines intersect in a point as shown in the figure above. Which of the following pairs of angle measures is not sufficient for determining all 6 angle measures? To handle this angles problem, your toolbox is pretty small. The only things you need to know is that a line adds to 180 degrees and that vertical angles look like this. It's when you have 2 lines crossing and the angles on top of each other are the same. Same deal with the angles across from each other. They are also the same. That's all you need to know to solve this problem. So let's get started. Would t and z be enough to determine all 6 angle measures? Well, if I know t and z, I know they're equivalent to each other, but I don't know any other vertical angles to t and z, and I would have to know one of r or y to find out the other one because they would all add to a straight line of 180. So I feel like I'm not going to be able to determine the other angles with just t and z, but we should check the other answer choices just to make sure. What if we had t and y? Well, if we had t and y, having t gives you z because they're vertical angles, and once we have z and y, we can know r because they add up to 180 degrees. Knowing r gives you x because they're vertical angles, and knowing y gives you s because they're vertical angles. So we can do everything with t and y. What about s and x? Well, if I have s and x, then I know r and y because those are their vertical angles. And since I know 2 out of 3 in this straight line, I can tell t, and if I know t, I know z. So that's a given. What we're seeing here is that r and t would also be sufficient because if I know r and t, I know their vertical angles, z and x, and knowing 2 out of 3 on one of these lines gives me the other one. And of course, its vertical angle as well. Same story. If we have r and s, we know the vertical angles x and y, and then using that the lines add up to 180, we can solve for t and z. So that's good. So the only one that's not sufficient is the pair of vertical angles t and z. A.